So a couple of days I made a video talking about Bryce James. And basically it was a video talking about how we just can't let what happened to Bronny happen to Bryce James. As in, we gotta just let the kid be a kid. And this is not a video, as much as you wanna, if you wanna say that this is a video taking a shot at Bryce James, this is not. He seems like a good kid. But what we can't do is let what happened to Bronny James happen to him. Look, LeBron is going to be out of the NBA by the time Bryce James is there. Or is that age. So he's not going to get nepotismed into the NBA. But the reality of the situation is we're now seeing it on social media. Like Bryce has gone for a visit with Arizona. And look, I mean, like, it is what it is. But before we get on, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We're only 20 off 6K. If we could somehow hit that by the end of the day, that would be absolutely insane. But we've actually got to be honest here. And I think as somebody, like, it's very different with Bronny being a pro basketball player in a position where you can kind of criticize a pro basketball player. What we can't necessarily do is criticize a Bryce James, who last season in Sierra Canyon averaged 7 points per game, who played AAU in the summer and was not very good, and is 6'3.5". Like, that's the reality of the situation. He's about 6'3.5". But we're now seeing, like, obviously him going to on a visit to Arizona, and everything is just, you know, Bryce is going to be 100 times better than Bronny. Is he as good as Bronny? And thankfully there are some people with sense. It's like incomparably worse at the same age, but there's a chance he grows more. The reality is Bryce hasn't grown in 2 years. Like, or in at least in a year. He hasn't grown. He's so much better than Bronny. Based on what? Based on what? Bronny James was one of the 3 or 4 best players in Sierra Canyon. Bryce James, I'm not joking about it when I say this about Bryce. Bryce James, I'm not sure if he's a starter at Sierra Canyon. He wasn't last year, and averaged 7 points per game. But, like, now we're seeing it, Bryce James playing against whoever the hell Ray is during Kais in that stream. So I need to block. I'm just gonna block this with my cursor. I'll start playing the video because fuck that site. No, being blocked with my cursor. And the guy Bronny or Bryce hits an open jump shot like that. Like a guy who's never played basketball, they are literally open jump shots. He hits 2 high school threes in a row. Is at the NBA three-point line, pulls from a little bit deeper in the NBA three, hits a 3rd shot. And you're like, okay. Like, he can shoot a little bit, like, playing inside. But, like, if you know anything about basketball, every single NBA player can do that. And that includes, like, I've watched JaVale McGee nail 10 threes in a row. I watched Al Horford make 15 threes in a row. The comments, like, Bryce and Melo's going to take over the league. What's Bronny doing on the Lakers? We need Bryce. Someone said it's LeBron's real son, Bronny adopted. Like, people don't realize Bronny James in those scenarios would literally be doing what Bryce James is doing. Bronny's so much better. Like, Bronny James was a 3-ish star recruit. Like, Bronny James was, if you guys don't know, like, if you want to look at Bronny James' offers, and we have to look at their offers and their recruiting profiles. Like, Bronny James, again, he completely lied about his height. The guy's 6'1". And that's the same thing. Like, Bryce James is about 2 and a bit inches taller. People are like, he's 6'6". No, Bryce James is 6'3". Bronny James, I want to just see what his offers were, but I'm pretty sure he had like a whole bunch of offers. Like, he had offer from Memphis, an offer from Ohio State, and he had interest. There were a lot of other, he only had 3 offers. USC, Memphis, and Ohio State. And to be fair, like, some non-official offers, like Duquesne and stuff. And, like, the only schools Bryce has an offer for are Ohio State, obviously. He's a James kid. And Duquesne, whose coach is LeBron's former high school teammate. And that's fine. Look, Bryce James, if Bronny James was a mid-major level player, Bryce James is at this point in time, and I think he's in this high school class in 2025, if I'm not mistaken. If he does end up in this high school class, Bryce James is a D2 level, is a D2 prospect. Like, that is the level that Bryce James is at. And that's not a knock on Bryce James. Like, let the kid be a kid. Like, he's going, like, it's like recruitment tour in full effect. Like, he's got the name. It's not even a fault of him not having the game. It's fine. Bryce James is a very average shooter, an average athlete with average length, who is about 6'3". Like, neither of LeBron James' kids, like, if you look at the sons of NBA players, like, some of them, like, have struggled. Like, heck, at Sierra Canyon last year, Scottie Pippen's other kid was way better than Bryce James, and he's averaging 0.5 points a game at Michigan, but he still got to Michigan. But that's the reality of the situation is like, there's no reason to hype the kid up. It's like, let the kid be a kid. Let him play out his high school career. And thankfully, there's still always going to be the talk of him going to the NBA. But you just know it's going to happen when Bryce eventually goes to a school that he's not good enough to play at. And he then gets minutes because his surname is James. And we see what happens, like, when Bronny is just clearly not good enough to play in the G League. Like, it becomes an embarrassing situation. But what Bryce could be is a good Division 2 player. And that's the problem with this whole situation. And I think, like, part of it is on LeBron as well. And it's about knowing the level of your kids, knowing the level of people in your family. We've heard it with Lonzo Ball basically telling LiAngelo today that, dude, you're not going to make the NBA. He was like, oh yeah, you got your chance. You're not going to make the NBA. Go overseas and just maybe, that might be a route in, but go overseas. Go overseas and play pro ball. Like, it's at the stage, we've seen how it's not going to work out for Bronny. Like, Bronny James is never going to have a professional basketball career. That's the unfortunate truth, is because he's never even going to really have a basketball career, because he could have been a decent enough college player at a mid-major, had 4 years in college, and did whatever he wanted to do afterwards. Maybe played pro. He could have done exactly what he did now. It's just, it wouldn't have lined up with LeBron James' timeline, so they forced him out of college. He wouldn't have lasted the 4 years at USC, but he probably wouldn't have lasted 4 years at USC, but like, still, he would have still played 4 years, probably 4 years at the D1 level if you're Bronny James, and been okay. He would have been a fine D1 player. But what LeBron has basically done is, you're now seeing accusations of Lakers faking an injury to make sure he doesn't play basketball. Like, Bronny James is never going to play a meaningful minute of basketball for the rest of his life, because he's not going overseas, because the levels he's going to play at are low levels overseas because of import rules, and they don't care about his name being James. He's never going to play a meaningful minute of basketball for the rest of his life. Whereas if you're Bryce James, and if the recruiting was actually proper, and he went to either a D2 school, or heck, go to Duquesne. Go to Duquesne, redshirt a year. If you're coming out this year, you're extremely young as a freshman, redshirt a year, and then play your 4 years at Duquesne, and you'll play 4 years. You're probably not going to be play serious minutes, but you'll play 4 solid years at a mid-major in Duquesne. Like, but his basketball career is going to last 5 years. The problem is, if he goes to like an Arizona, if he goes to one of these big colleges, he might not play another meaningful minute of bat. If he goes to a big college who only have him because his surname is James, just like what's already happening to Bronny James, might happen to Bryce. If he goes to one of these big colleges, he is just simply put not good enough, and that's okay. Like, that's an okay thing to say, because he's a really good basketball player. Like, if he went D2, he could have a serious D2 career, or if he went to a Duquesne, he could have an okay 4 year college career. But the problem is that he is like a 6'2", not particularly, or 6'3", not particularly athletic, okay shooter, mediocre athlete, not particularly athletic, decent enough length, okay shooter. And it's like, he's the size of an undersized point. He's a point guard size, but he plays like a 4. Like, it's just like, and this isn't even knock at Bronny James. Like, he's a good basketball player. But we're now going to see the media, and we're going to see LeBron forcing him, just like he did to Bronny, forcing him into a situation where he's just not good enough for, and it's going to mean that he's not going to have a basketball career. And I get it. Neither of these kids need money. But if they like the sport of basketball, they're going to want to play it at a level for as long as they can. And you better believe enough people lied to Bronny James and told Bronny James he was an NBA player, and Bryce is probably buying that he could survive at one of these schools. Like, just go to Duquesne. Go to Duquesne. Please, Bryce, go to Duquesne. Like, with all these other schools, please, Bryce, please go to Duquesne. Because if he wants to have a good basketball career, which I think he can. Like, again, this is not a knock on Bronny James or on Bryce James or Bronny. This is a knock on the media. This is a knock on LeBron. This is a knock on these schools just wanting to do what the Lakers did, to have the name James on the back of jerseys so that they can sell jerseys, they can make NIL money, and they can make money off the kid. Just please go to Duquesne. You're going to have a decent career. You're going to have a lot of fun playing basketball, and you're going to play some meaningful basketball minutes. Please go to Duquesne, Bryce. Please. If not go to Duquesne, go to a D2 school and ball out at D2. Because the last thing anyone should want for Bryce is that Bryce James gets used in the same way as Bronny does. Because however bad we think Bronny is right now, like, no offense to Bryce, he's not as good as Bronny, and it's not even close. He's not even close to being as good as Bronny. But anyway, see you guys.